there we go. I hope the audio is fine. Novus, you can't register in the open playtest right now because the servers aren't online. You cannot create an account. So that's why, right? I would suggest you should just play the demo because the demo doesn't require an account, it's offline, right? Hey, Johnny. No, you can't register now. This is not an online. I'm not playing on a server. This is an offline build. It's essentially what will be available for the demo later. Of course, with a few more vehicles, right? Hey, Ghost. Good to see you coming by. Well, there will be another playtest later in December, right? I can't give you an exact date right now, because we need to make sure that all the features work and all of them are in there. This is a developer build, so it's possible that we might have some bugs, we might have a crash, that's the way it goes. And if we experience that, we'll make sure it doesn't happen anymore, right? All right. Let me just check on something quickly. Okay. Right. I'd say we get right into it. As briefly mentioned before, this is the showcase or the preview of the updates that will be coming in December. I think the first thing that you will immediately notice is that the hangar lighting has been significantly overhauled. So all the objects are pretty much the same, but the lighting has completely changed. And with all the god rays here and the sun flare and everything, you can see that there was a significant step up in visual quality. And I think it also makes the hangar look a bit more welcoming. It's brighter and you can actually see the vehicles much better. So that's surely gonna help. Then the next thing, which is also I think blatantly obvious, we have a complete overhaul of the hangar UI. Right now a few elements aren't completely done, like this mode selection, these buttons up here. We're not quite sure how we're going to style them later on, but for the moment they're work in progress, they're functional, but they will probably get a redesign. The header bar has been adjusted, so we have a much clearer overview of which screen we're currently in, what we're looking at. The tech trees were completely restyled, so as you can see we have these hovers where you can see a short preview of the vehicle with some features, any special stuff it has, like multi-turrets, whether it's very tanky, it's mobile, something like that. And all the way down to rank 19, of course. Then in the main garage, or the main hangar view you could say, we completely overhauled the statistics panel over here. I think it's much clearer. You can see the stats much more quickly, and we changed the grouping around a little bit. We removed some of the redundant stuff, so it's just easier to get a quick overview of the vehicle. The difficulty color now has a slider, so it changes color essentially. So depending on which vehicle you have, the difficulty color will change, and depending on how hard it is to play, just to help a little bit with essentially communicating that more clearly. Then the entire vehicle carousel down here has been overhauled, as you can see. It looks quite different. The colors are more vibrant, the vehicles are larger, it's a bit easier to see them, the text is more clear. All the filter controls down here were adjusted. Right now, this is why this is the preview, this is not why it's the full demo. You can see the filter menu, for instance, still has the old user interface, so this one hasn't been adjusted yet. Then next one, ammunition. So as you can see here, the perforation matrix, so the performance overview of the projectiles has been adjusted, it's restyled, and you also have a, I guess, different controls, I would call it, or a very different visual style for essentially adjusting your ammo loadout. And if we go over here, it should be available in the build. Where is it? Here. And we also now list multiple weapon systems in parallel, so you don't have to swap around. You can adjust all of them in a single view. And then last but not least, we overhauled the modifications, or we built an upgrade UI. At the moment it's not populated because there's no upgrade system in the game yet, but this is roughly how it's going to look. You'll see the vehicle on the left hand side, and you'll essentially see your upgrades sorted into the individual groups. And I think that's pretty much it. That wraps it up neatly. Some might have noticed on the left hand side here we have a crewman, or a placeholder for it. Right now it doesn't do anything, but we just wanted to block out the visual elements and how they're going to look when we later actually integrate a crew system into the game. And another interesting part is we overhauled the camouflage, or I guess customization UI you could call it. We can swap between the different map types available here, and we will see the available camouflage patterns available for that map. Right now for some vehicles the masking isn't built yet, so essentially it just slops the color everywhere. This is going to be adjusted, that's not how it's going to be in the final game. But you have all of the standard controls adjusting the scale, offset of the pattern, and even rotation if you want to. And also a fade, essentially how worn out the pattern is for the people that like it. So that's pretty much that. Now let's get back to business. Hi Chris. Zombies Pro. Is the driving going to change or not? I think that depends a lot on what reference you have. Chances are you probably didn't play the up-to-date demo or anything like that, or the current version, because driving has completely changed since then. So if you're asking whether driving is still the same as it was 6 months ago, then no, it is not. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we worked really hard, and we're not done yet, right? There's a lot more things that have to be done, but for the moment, we're working on it. Novus, you should just get the offline demo. There's a separate download button. Right now, you don't download the same thing. You have to download two separate versions of the game. The offline demo currently does not have a launcher. That's the other thing we're working on. It's almost done. It's not completely, but very soon. I think the next between 1 and 2 weeks, I would guess right now. In the next 1 to 2 weeks, there should be a unified launcher, which should handle both or run both on Linux and Windows, and you can download both the actual playtest that you can play online with people and the offline demo through that. You essentially just have a drop down. You need to select which version you want to play, and the launcher does everything for you. Now, that being said, I think we can roll for a few rounds. Any requests? Go ahead. We have an expanded selection of vehicles available. Plus, this time around, we also have a few vehicles that aren't completely textured. Abend, Thomas. Nice to have you here. Maybe we'll actually go through those first. So we have the Stug E100, which is essentially a faithful restoration of the vehicle. So when looking into the actual data regarding the vehicle, of course, we all know the E100 hull was actually built. There are photos of it. I think there are actually 2 that were built. So they existed. As for the casemate, that's essentially where the reconstruction part comes in. So there are blueprints that essentially show this portion of the vehicle, or of the proposed vehicle. So we see how the gun is mounted into the casemate, and we see both the angles and the armor thickness. Now, what we extrapolated essentially is the rear part here. Now, the reason why we didn't go for a Jagdpanzer E100 style reconstruction like World of Tanks does is because the E100 actually has the engine in the back. So we argued that it'd be harder to essentially rearrange the entire drivetrain, move it to the front, and then have separate crew compartments for the driver and assistant driver, as well as the crew in the back or in the casemate. So essentially this is a Jagdtiger style Sturmgeschütz on E100. And right now it's technically the most powerful gun in the game, you could argue. Hey Rexo. This game have all the real tank or just... I don't quite know what you mean by that. We don't have fake tanks or made up vehicles, right? This is basically the extent as far as we go, where we know like 95% of the vehicle, right? So we have sufficient data to essentially reconstruct the vehicle, right? But we're not going to like slap rocket boosters on this, right? So we're not going to do that. Novus, yes, that's the demo, right? It's available on Kickstarter. Right now it's the old demo version, so it's not going to look like what I have here. It still has the old user interface, but then you can at least take it for a spin. Steam is more of a very long-term thing, simply because Steam has very, very steep requirements when it comes to monetization. And if you essentially have to give something like 50% of your profit away, that's quite problematic, right? And I think right now it's not the correct platform to move on to for us. About the E25, Chris, I think the reason why people hate the E25 so much is very specifically because of the way World of Tanks portrayed it, right? And the E25 is actually not that small. It's quite chunky, and it also doesn't have a very weak gun. The gun is actually quite powerful. It's a Panther gun. So the E25 might actually make an appearance in Steel Aces later down the track, but it will be very, very different. Novus, pretty much that. And the other thing is, it's very important for us that we're independent, right? We need to have the independence to make the correct decisions to make the game as good as possible, right? And I don't think that this flexibility or independence would be guaranteed if we moved on Steam right now. Thomas, wir haben keine freien Tage. Wir arbeiten immer. Yeah. So, this is the new little tank that's... Oh, damn it, I loaded the wrong ammo. So basically it has... we can just sit here because the T60 has so much armor that it basically can't take itself out frontally. We might be able... Yes. We can actually go through there. We'll probably have to optimize some of the visual effects for small caliber guns, because they can actually cause a bit of a ruckus, right? Getting distracted here. There's multiple E100 turrets, you could argue, right? So you probably mean the World of Tanks turret, right, with the angled faces everywhere. That's, if I remember correctly, it's actually not the E100 turret, it's the Maus 2 turret. But maybe I might be wrong here, right? Maybe they just look similar. The special thing about the E100 turret is that it's actually quite thin. It doesn't have a lot of armor on the side. The front is around 200 and the side is 80. And we essentially applied that same logic to the Stug E100, by the way. So it doesn't get more side armor than the Jagdtiger on the casemate. And that's why you basically can't angle it. If you angle it, you will lose a significant amount of protection. The thing with the T60 is it actually has more rear armor than side armor, So you have to get it side on, and from the front, that's a bit too much. Then we'll just wait for our team to come. As you can see here, the vehicle is quite compact, right? And there's 2 rounds available. There's one with a bit more damage and the other one with more penetration. And the problem is you basically can't knock out the other T60 frontally, so you have to either get in close and shoot the throat on the turret, or you have to catch it from the side. And the second round I'm shooting right now with the higher performance is actually a sub-caliber round, basically. It's like a really bad APCR, whereas the normal one is a full caliber, so that's where you see the performance difference. It does more damage, but it can't go through as much armor. Ja, genau, Thomas. So Thomas just mentioned something in chat, basically the NPCs don't fall off the bridge anymore. Yes, that's a change that we made. The entire NPC ecosystem is of course something that is work in progress, and they will be expanded with more and more features to come. Right now the main improvement is essentially how they move around the map and maneuvering. The next step is going to essentially help them with combat specifically. So right now the issue is that they cannot judge their own gun elevation angles. So if they have a line of sight on you, but they can't depress their gun far enough, they essentially just sit there or maybe move around a little, but they don't actually maneuver into a position where they could return fire. So that's essentially a way you can cheese them at the moment, but of course that's not reflective of the final version of them. So that will be adjusted. Speaking of that, I think we could take this one for a spin. I'm actually going to put some camouflage on here just to get rid of the placeholder texture. Maybe some stripes like this. I think that looks cool. Of course. The profile is currently work in progress, right? So all of this stuff isn't really built. The idea is that you have a match history where you can essentially see the last battles that you fought. Then an overview of statistics. As you can see, there's not much to see here, right? It's just work in progress. And then essentially an overview for each individual vehicle where you can see what sort of performance do you have with what vehicle, right? So it's going to be pretty much that. There's also going to be a profile overview where you have, you know, all the medals and the grand picture of the account, you could argue, right? Like how many battles did you fight? How many battles did you win? That kind of stuff, right? We have a vehicle request, so, you know, let's go for the VK36 then. Here it is. What's important to know about the VK36 is it has a squeeze bore and it has 2 different rounds. So there's the W round, which stands for Weicheisen, which is sort of cast iron or soft iron. And that's why it has pretty bad performance. As you can see here, it's only around 120 pen flat max, which is not really good, but the damage is significantly higher. So you can essentially, you take a few of these, but you only use them for targets with thin armor or when you're flanking something. And that's the way you have to play this vehicle. No planes or artillery, that is true. What about SPAA? So with SPAAs, it's really a per basis decision, right? The problem with SPAAs is that essentially they trade a lot of their anti-tank capabilities, you could argue, for anti-plane capabilities, logically, right? They're designed to shoot down planes. Now, the problem is if you make them face normal tanks in combat, and you get usually one of 2 situations. One, they can't damage anything because they simply don't have the armor piercing capabilities, so they're just a bit useless, you could argue. And situation 2, when they actually can penetrate armor, then they just destroy everything because they have such a high volume of fire. They can just outshoot a lot of other things. Now, what this means is that basically there will be very few SPAs in Steel Aces simply because they're hard to balance, right? There will probably be a few, especially the, I guess, exception ones that have, I'd have to pay more attention to the battle here, especially the ones that have more conventional weaponry, you could argue, so higher caliber, slower firing guns. I think the ZSU-57-2 will probably make an appearance, right? Because it's mostly made of cheese, it doesn't have a lot of armor, and it doesn't have a super high amount of penetration. We're talking around 150, so you can basically move it into a niche role where it's a bit like a light tank almost, that is specialized in flanking vehicles, right? So that one should be sorted. Right, there we go. As you can see, I switched to the soft round because it doesn't have armor, especially on the lower part. It's only 38 mils, so that's pretty easy to take advantage of. Now, as for this guy, we have to make sure we hit that weak point. We dealt a bit less damage there because of the angle. We'll have to angle, but he's probably just he's just going to shoot me in the face. Because the VK-36 doesn't have a lot of armor on the turret face, it's actually thinner, so you shouldn't shoot the hull. You should shoot the turret if possible. Couldn't get a good angle there. One or two more, then we got him. Yeah. As you can see here, he's targeting my turret front. But this guy we can actually shoot in the turret side at least, as long as he's distracted. Ouch! Have to get away from here. Let's try to take out that KV. Got him. Oh no. Okay, he fired. Yeah. We can't really afford to aim there, so we have to wait for him to fire and essentially deal with the teammates. Whew, that was a close one. Alright, back to questions. Thank you, Ghost. Your vote of confidence helps us. Probably Johnny, but we're not going to make a guarantee, right? We didn't hit the goal, and you have to keep in mind that there is a difference between what you pledge on Kickstarter and how much is actually being paid. There's always a little bit of losses, so even if we hit the goal exactly, there's always going to be a bit less. So there's a larger delta than you can see, simply because sometimes credit cards fail to actually charge and so on. So the distance is the gap is a bit larger than you think, but we'll see, right? Of course, we'll try to add that, but I can't guarantee that we'll have it. Right, Thomas. So basically, the reason why we can't just color the armor inspector like other games do is because we don't have armor plates. Games like World of Tanks and War Thunder, they essentially build individual elements and then group them together and say, oh, this one is 100mm stake, this one is 50, this one is 30. We don't do that. We actually have a complete volumetric armor model, which is why it's more accurate. So you don't get the weird situations where you shoot here where it's 100 mils and then here it's suddenly 60, right? You don't get that. But on the other side, we also can't directly color things as easily. There's probably a way we can pull something off like that, but it might take a significant amount of extra work, right? Yeah, so right now the gun sounds are work in progress, right? It simply costs a lot of money to build them. It costs a lot of time and work. So we will add more distinctive gun sounds. You might have already heard there's some new engine sounds for a few vehicles. It's just work in progress, right? Like it takes a while to get all of those built. Yeah. Right, let's take the big one out. As you can see, the gun is enormous. It's extremely powerful. And the same for the high explosive round. Like, there are actually a bunch of vehicles you can penetrate frontally with the high explosive round, and it is rather humorous. I mean, for these guys we can't pen them with HE, unless we get a flank on an M103. That would actually work. And the IS-3 is also getting an overhaul, so like, this slightly cursed model is going to get replaced, of course. As you heard there, there's a slightly different sound when you drive over the ground. So, you know, things are being worked on. It's just, especially the art parts. So when it comes to visual effects, audio and so on, everything where you need a dedicated expert is just more arduous. It just takes longer because you need someone else to do it. Alright, let's see. I think this guy is racing forwards. Alright, let's set up here. Maybe not. It was actually kind of a low damage shot, because we hit so low that we couldn't get enough fragmentation on the crew. Maybe if I aim a bit more central this time. Yep, that was a little better. Because the shell lands so low on the vehicle, we can't get proper fragmentation on the interior parts, which is slightly dismaying, but we can also just take it up here. There we go. Now we can sort out the other IS-3 on that side. That was HE. Yep, that was right in the ammo. Well, we do not intend to play around with any, how do you call it, loot box shenanigans, right? Like, Steel Aces won't have loot boxes, it's just, we don't think it's the right way to move forward, right? And it's just an intransparent way to monetize the game. You can actually pen the M103 up here, right? You just need to know the silhouette, but basically there's no armor. Well, there is armor, but not for this gun, right? As you can see, hitting the ammo, we actually did a bit more damage. It was like over 900. Thank you for that, Biteless. it really helps when you work a lot and you see that people enjoy it, right? Or that they're, you know, looking forward to things. And I mean, I myself am looking forward to this game, right? It's been a very, very wild journey overall, right? I think I grew a lot over the years, and there's just so many things you learn and experience and find out. It's just, there's nothing like it, right? A project of this scale. I never thought it was gonna grow this large, right? But sometimes things just happen, right? Yeah, GG. That's one of the things, right? Like, voice actors just cost money, right? And when you want to expand stuff like that, you need someone who does the voice acting, right? And it's just that right now we have more or less a few placeholders in place, right? And that's that, right? Yes. It's more 3.5, Mike, but yeah. Thomas, there are open maps. We have one in development. I'm not going to show it off right now simply because it's a bit too empty, but it's a very different map. So things work quite differently there. Speaking of that, I think we'll go for 2 more rounds with vehicles that were significantly adjusted. So the AMX-13 moved down to rank 8, specifically because the AMX-13 is quite old vehicle design. It's actually not that modern. When it comes to the drive and everything, it's a bit more simple. And the other thing is, technically the autoloader is essentially hand cranked. So you basically have a crank in there that you turn to essentially drop the round and ram it into the breech. So that's why the intra-clip reload was adjusted a little bit. And then we'll just, you know, see how it works. Gotta be careful, the M6A2E1 has a pretty powerful gun. It has quite a bit of punch. We'll just follow our KV-122 and see where he goes. Another thing you might have seen down here are these pips. So essentially the idea is that I give you a very quick and simple in-game overview of round performance, basically. So if you have 3 pips in penetration and 2 pips in damage, or 1 pip in damage, then of course it means, you know, higher penetration, lower damage. Alright, let's see. And 1. Yep. We'll have to move around and help out, otherwise they will get overwhelmed. Oh no, what is the elephant doing? I think they're stuck and they both want to move in different directions. The ammo is also stored down here, as you can see. So we'll just go for our reload. I mean, for instance, this is another thing that hasn't been done yet, right? So the NPC agents, they can't actually see each other, right? So they have no way to properly essentially avoid each other and obstacles. And this one is clearly just super angry at the elephant. So he basically ignores the fact that I just clip him out from the side. And they just YOLO through. Yes, not quite, Mike. So this is essentially an internal developer demo or an internal developer build but it's going to be quite similar to the updated version of the offline demo that's going to be available, right? So there will be some differences. You might not have or you won't have the same amount of vehicles available, but in effect, when it comes to the changes in the game, those are going to be pretty much the same. I think the 3-second intro clip actually feels quite interesting, because the overall reload isn't that long, so essentially the DPM of the vehicle, the maximum damage output per minute, is limited because it can't shoot that fast, and it also doesn't require to have a super long reload when the clip has been emptied. That was an engine hit. And we'll go for the reload. Oh boy, they've been maybe something is broken with the M6. We'll have to double check that. Shouldn't shoot the back of the turret on the M6, I think that one is a bit thicker. Yeah, that was a really bad shot. This will just get stuck on this VK. Three, two, and we'll just put them out of their misery. Okay. We can actually shoot the ammo from here. We'll actually run out of ammo. Let's see, come on. Right now we don't have, well, technically the vehicles do detonate, right? The thing is, with the life point system, there is no point in... I'll just skip out of this game. Like, the NPCs are so stuck, they are not going to be able to finish that one off. But as mentioned before, right, it's just something that's work in progress, right? They don't have the capability to see the other vehicles right now, so they just get stuck sometimes, right? And in this case, with them just driving past each other, that was, I think, a really unfortunate situation that triggered that, right? But as for the damage mechanics, we don't really look to have one-shots in the game, because it's extremely frustrating, right? If you get hit once in the ammo and you just explode, what's the point in having a life point system if it does that? So for the arcade game mode, it's not going to happen, right? We're not going to have one-shots. Maybe there will be a very low chance of detonating ammo when you hit it directly, maybe. But that's really something we'll have to decide on still, right? Because it can be very frustrating, you have to balance it very carefully. Speaking of which, Tanker just noticed, we do have a new vehicle, the M6A2E1, however you want to call it, the Mutant. This is the original version, so it doesn't have the additional armor plate. It's essentially a smoothed out M6 hull, you could argue, with a very, very big turret on there, some ammo stored in the sides down here, and it's really a driving gun platform, right? It doesn't have a lot of armor, it's not super thick, but the gun is quite punchy, and that's really how you have to play it. So, about game mode Spiteless, the idea is the following, that we don't have a cookie cutter approach to this. There's not just one game mode, one fits all game mode. There are smaller game modes like this, which is essentially a skirmish format where you have smaller teams in essentially smaller maps. As you can see here, we're only playing on a portion of this larger map, and that just helps in facilitating quicker and I guess easier to pick up battles, really, right? You have a bit more impact as an individual player, you can mess up more easily, right? Because the traveling distances aren't that long, but that's the general idea. As for the released game and the, I guess, premiere game mode, arcade PvP, it's probably going to be 12 versus 12. That's what we're aiming for at the moment. But this number may also be adjusted by map size, right? Hey Pacific, good to have you here. Oh, let's see. There we go, one. We also have a new damage notification here, so the in-battle UI is also getting overhauled, it's just work in progress. I think there may be something going on with them in this version, because they just drive past each other. At least this one does. Approximately 12 versus 12, yes. It may turn out to be a bit smaller, it may turn out to be a bit larger. We'll just simply have to see, right? Yeah, well, it's not necessarily all AI driven. Well, not AI as in neural network, right? That's essentially when you want to build a proper AI for a game, it's usually a pretty bad idea if you decide on only using a single approach. So the magic neural network is not going to like just fix everything, but something with these is clearly going wrong, and we'll have to diagnose that, right? So it may actually just be a setting or something. I don't know. I'll have to talk with the hamster about that. Of course, it's a bit dismaying that they don't really shoot back right now. Maybe it's because the KV-122 is on the cap. Yeah, so the thing with 30 versus 30 battles is you just need a different game mode, right? Like you need a much larger scale, and I guess you need a different framework for the battle to take place in, right? It's not off the table. It's absolutely possible that we do something like that later down the track, but it has to be later down the track. We're not going to do it like right out of the gate. That's where you should aim. Johnny, that is a thing we have thought about. At the moment, right now, I don't know if it's been implemented yet, right? I think it's still work in progress. The idea is that when only one component or crew member is knocked out and you press the heal or repair button, it's just going to do that automatically, right? If like the track is damaged or destroyed and you press the repair button, of course it's going to repair that because there's nothing else it could do, right? Speaking of which, I think I have something that quite a lot of people will actually like, because it's a very special vehicle. It's the M41 Bulldog, right? The vehicle you could argue that I chose my nickname from. But this one has a special modification. So essentially there was a plan to mount an autoloader in the T-37 light tank. Essentially, the idea was to replace the M24 Chaffee with a new vehicle, which was the T-37. And during the T-37 program, there were multiple iterations of the weapon system or the turret and everything. And one of them included an autoloader for both the T-37 and the T-24E1, which was later standardized to the M41 Walker Bulldog. And this means that there actually is a historical basis for an autoloader on the M41 Bulldog. Now, it's not exactly portrayed as the real one, simply for balancing reasons, because the real autoloader had 23 shots. So obviously, there's no way we can make a 23-shot autoloader actually work properly, outside of turning it into a normal gun, right? So we still want to have the autoloader playstyle, you could argue, but it shouldn't be just toxic, right? And that's why we've limited it to 10 for the moment. It might go up to 12. The T-37 has a smaller capacity with only 13 rounds, and that one will probably be limited to 6. The idea is that vehicles usually have around 50% high explosive, so that's the idea. I'll have to see where we can sneak around, because we don't really want to fight the Tiger II head on, but if we can get a few flanking shots in, that's of course a different story. He seems to be somewhat interested in me, so we'll just go here. We'll switch to HVAP, because we can actually go through his third front with that. Fired. That was really dangerous because that was actually an HE round. You don't want to get hit by HE with a Bulldog. And we'll just clip him out. Ouch. That was an HE round. That was... Ouch, that was over 400. And I will just wait for a reload. Those rings down here are the view range, yes. And they're pretty large because view ranges are pretty high in the game. And graphics, of course, are always something that will be worked on and improved, right? I would dare say that the desert map looks pretty good as it is, right? The main difference in one of the major things in adjusting graphics quality is simply getting assets, right? So, of course, large studios or games that have been in development for a decade and so on, they have completely custom asset libraries. So essentially everything they have is built specifically for the game. We don't have that. If we had to build every single item that goes into the game, from like every bush to every rock by ourselves, that'd cause an immense slowdown. That's something that you have to do over time, really, right? And we will do that, but that's going to mostly happen post-launch, when we have the time and the resources to start swapping out all those small assets. Or we can just clip them out. I think we can probably go through here as well. Yeah, there we go. You just shouldn't shoot the rear of the turret on the T-29. And there we go. Yes, they cover the entire map because this is not the full map. This is a skirmish game mode. It's about half the size of a normal map. I mean, technically on this map, if you could sit up here, then you could basically see everyone, but essentially the map is limited, right? So this is a small format game mode where the map is smaller, so you're playing on half the map, and it's not necessarily intended for high rank gameplay like this, right? It's gonna be more oh, 1 second. Yeah, I had to switch to HVAP. It's going to be probably more common for low rank vehicles to have these smaller scale battle formats, and then for the higher ranks they'll probably get a larger portion of the map, right? But that's just something that has to be built, right? Oh, the trees that haven't fallen correctly, that doesn't really have anything to do with graphics at all, right? That's not a graphics improvement. The reason why that is the case is because when you knock over a tree, you can use that tree as camouflage, right, to conceal your vehicle. And it has to be consistent. We can't have that tree fall over in one direction on one side, and on one player, and for the other player it falls over in the other direction. And the same goes for having the vehicle stick in your tank and like fly around and drag it across the map. We also can't have that. So we need a predefined interaction where if you knock that tree over in that direction, it will fall over in that direction. That's the reason why they fall over like that. Well, best of luck with that, Johnny, right? Like, if you want to, you're cordially invited to stream the game when it's out, right? Or the next playtest round. We're not gonna stop you from doing that. We will also have a partner program later down the track. But then again, that's one of the things that we can focus on once the game is released. But there will be a partner program for streamers and content creators. Another update, the M4A1 FL10 has moved down in rank. So this one is currently at rank 8. Sorry, 7. It used to be at 8. Mostly because it's basically a Sherman with a better gun. It doesn't get the improved ammunition that the MX-13 gets. So the damage output is pretty much the same, but you have less armor penetration. And essentially, if someone shoots this vehicle with HE, it's gonna have a bad day, right? There is very little armor to protect you from that. So let's see, he's probably gonna run across here. 1. 2. Ah, he snapped that one. I will just go for the reload. We'll just sit here and wait because our teammates are coming that way anyways. There won't be holiday ops in Steel Aces, TG. It's just not gonna happen. Steel Aces is not owned by some big corporation or by some investor-driven publisher, right? It's just, that's why it's being built by 3 players, right? If we did have a big publisher or something, then yeah, we'd probably be, I guess, a bit further along in development because we'd have 60 or 100 players. But then you also lose control over things like how do I monetize my game, right? And that's really important to us. About destructible environments, so some things like this will simply not be destructible, right? Because some elements of cover need to be available at all times, right? If you can just knock these over, that's going to cause a problem. But there will be certain elements that you can destroy. We've also thought about Levolution, so essentially being able to destroy a bridge, for example, right? And essentially control a map crossing over a river, something like that. But that is something we'll do post launch of the game when we have more maps and when we can play around really, right? Because these things can have significant balance implications and we don't want to build something that just breaks the game, right? The game is going to release worldwide more or less, right? It's essentially going to be targeted primarily at Europe and North America though. So any other regions like Pacific region with Australia and so on, or even South America, those are more like long-term plans, right? Yes, fun game modes. So there will be fun game modes, yes. They will absolutely exist. Basically, the fact that Steel Aces is historically authentic and we don't make vehicles up doesn't mean that we can't have fun game modes, right? Because no one expects that a tanker racing game mode is like historically accurate or portrays a real scenario, right? Those things are just about having fun, and that's really how we want to treat them, right? There are going to be fun game modes that will be available probably during limited events, and that's what we'll keep it at, right? We might have just... That was close. That was close. Let's hope he finally connects one. Ah, there we go. Now we might be able to reset the cap. I think we can, but it might take a second. Ah, damn it! Houses like this are going to be destructible later on, right? So those are not going to be indestructible. I think there might be something off with the capture timer. I'll just have to write that down as a note. Excuse me for a second. Because the capture timer was, the game was over before the timer ran out, I think. Oh, did you guys see that? I think the game was over before the capture timer elapsed, right? Well, Tanker, you shouldn't worry about that because the G13 is already planned. Though I think it's probably going to be the G13 with the, was it the PAC 51 or something? It's essentially the French SA50 in the G13. So it's going to be an actual alternative to the Hetzer, so it will be different. We strongly try to avoid copy pasta vehicles, so we're not going to like take an M4 Sherman and copy paste it 37 times and then every nation gets a Sherman, right? There's not really any point in that, certainly not for the tech tree or grind. Maybe collectors or rewards vehicles that you can unlock for like a captured German Sherman with some cool customization or modifications, that's different. But as for the tech tree and the actual progression, we don't want everyone to go through a Sherman 5 times over, right? It's there's just no real point in that. And that is specifically why the Hetzer and the G13 will be distinctive vehicles, right? And by giving the G13 the larger gun, they actually are distinctive because the Hetzer has a better fire rate, the other one has a lower fire rate but higher penetration. I don't know about that i3 9100, it's probably quite weak, but the game is playable on a GTX 1050, so 1050 Ti should also be able to handle it. You're not going to be able to play it on 4K with 60 FPS, but if you run it on low to medium settings, you should be able to play it. Especially in the later playtest, when we the playtest later in December, when we play on the North American server, you should be able to play with reasonable ping. I'd say probably around 100 maybe, but that's something you can just figure out then, I think. Well, technically yes, if we have a Hetzer model then it's not that hard to build a G13, right? But if we don't have a Hetzer model yet, then it's just as hard to build a G13, right? But Swiss vehicles will make an appearance. If you look at the research tree right now, we actually list all of the vehicles, all of the nations. So while the tech trees are named after the primary nation or the largest nation, they still contain multiples. So the German tech tree, as you can see in the outline up here, also contains Austria, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. So they're all grouped together as a geographic region, and all the individual vehicles, of course, have their specific nation. So all of the World War II German vehicles are Third Reich vehicles. All of the later ones, like the Leopard, are Bundeswehr or Bundesrepublik Germany, right? And the same for Switzerland and Austria. So they will belong to their respective individual nations. All right. What else could we take for a spin? Give me some suggestions. Hey, Kronos. That's a good question, Gigi, right? Essentially, it boils down to our requirements for the tech tree, really, right? There are some vehicles that were only used by certain nations, but they don't really fit in that tree. So, for instance, we plan a tree for the Middle East later down the track, and there are some Israeli vehicles in there. The problem is that it doesn't really make sense to have 2 or 3 Israeli World War II era vehicles simply because they use them, right? So there's no point in adding 2 or 3 vehicles that just dangle around with any connection. And because they were built in France, they'll actually be moved to the French tech tree and French vehicles. So in that case, it's essentially required because we want to make these vehicles available for play to everyone and not just have them around as some reward or collector's vehicle that you have to unlock or something. So that's one point. The other one is that sometimes we have a gap in a research tree. So ideally we want a full line from 1 to 19. And sometimes there's a gap, we have at rank 14, let's say. And then it is viable to take, let's say, a Pandur or something built by the Swiss and move it to the European tree because the Czech actually use it. So it's a bit utilitarian, right? But especially for modern era, it gets modeled very, very, very hard, because especially the wheeled vehicles, they're just used by everyone. So there's for instance, the Mowag, I think it was a Mowag Pandur, is originally built by the Swiss, but there's like 100 different versions, and they're used everywhere from Africa to South America and the Pacific, basically. Probably not, Mike, because right now like, for instance, this one is a placeholder model, right? It's not textured to the standard that we have. It's more to just have something there, but it's going to be completely rebuilt. And with essentially having a T64 and a Leopard 2, it's just not enough, right? We have essentially 4 vehicles at the high ranks, and there's not enough volume at the moment to actually play them, right? Because only playing T72s against T72s gets a bit boring quite quickly. That being said, we could take something from the Cold War for a spin. We could actually take the Chieftain for a round. Let's see, I think it should work, but I think there's only 2 other vehicles at that rank, I think. Yes, the M50 is going to make an appearance. There's also a Wolverine M10 version of it. It's essentially a French modification of sticking the French SA50, basically the MX-13 gun, into the M10, and that one existed. So they're going to be in the French tree, however. That's a question, Tanker. I don't know how many Leopard 1 variants. It's probably going to be 40, 50, something like that. A lot of them for sure. I have to see, the BMD doesn't really have a lot of armor, so we will certainly shoot Hesh at that guy. Oh, speak of the devil. So we dodged that one. And there you go. That's a squash head round. I think there we go. There we go. So that one's sorted. Let's look for the other chieftains. Ah, we dodged that one. All that BMD is not going to do a lot with that 30 mil. Have to make sure maybe we can sneak a few shots into those chieftain sites. Let's try to focus our fire on that one. Modern era vehicles are not specifically balanced at the moment, so when it comes to DPM, life points and so on, it's all a very big guess at the moment. Let's see, I think, yeah, we can flank those for sure, right? We don't have crazy pen with Hesh, we just have to make sure we don't shoot any spaced or applique. As long as we hit the engine flat, like that, it should work. Also, some of the engine sounds will be adjusted, because right now we have the sort of chieftain engine sound of the Leyland. It's just way too quiet, so it has to be adjusted. There are a few things that need to be sorted, especially the volume isn't quite leveled, though, just to make sure I'm not being dumb. We can probably do this for the moment. to have, I guess, more reasonable engine sounds. That sounds a bit more like the Leyland, I think. Oh, whoops. Forgot about that one. Well, then we'll just roll back and shoot him again. And there we go. Alright. That being said, I think we can actually take the BMD2 for a spin. How much we're gonna need? We don't need too much AP. Simply because, I mean, guess it depends. Let's go like 70 AP. And let's see, because we only have 4 missiles, so we'll have to rely on the APDS to essentially take out anything with the armor. Let's just, yeah, let's hope we get a good matchmaking. It's work in progress, right? So, like, the Chieftain sound is certainly more distinctive, right? There are a few things where I'm not quite happy with how it sounds under load changes, but it's just, you know, work in progress, right? Yes, we probably won't call them gun marks, right? Or marks of excellence. I would tend towards calling them kill markings, or kill marks, but we will see, right? Someone around. Ah. I have to take care of it because I really don't want to get shot by the BMD. Yeah, I mean he's tracked. He's cooked. And we'll switch to APDS. We'll have to see. It might be prudent to actually sneak around. I'll probably try to drive around there because I really don't want to engage with a Chieftain frontally. You actually can pen the Chieftain frontally with APDS because the lower plate is sort of made of cheese, and the APDS gets pretty decent pen on the 30mm, but it's not efficient really, right? Let's sneak around. Oh. That was unfortunate. Oh, okay. Alright. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to tell which way they're looking, right? There we go. And there we go. Let's go for a reload. We can actually use the AP at close range. If we got him from the rear, that actually works. So I'll sneak around down here. I feel so sneaky. I think we can just outtrade him here. Ah, no gun depression. Soviet vehicles for you. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Be gone! Oh, and we don't have missiles. Also, ow! Slightly over-exaggerated aggression from my side there. Whew. That was a close call. Yes, that it's not a rocket, it's a missile, right? So rockets are not guided, they just fly in the direction that you shoot them in, right? So that's like the Grad, it's the Russian or Soviet truck with the missiles on the back, or Katyusha and so on. Those are rockets because they're not guided, they just fly on a straight line. A missile you can actually adjust on the flight, right? There's also different types of missiles and how they're guided. But those are changes and things we'll look into later down the track when we have modern vehicles more solidly established, I would argue. But there's going to be a lot to learn about that, and they will be very different to play. So lots of new things to learn. What else? Make suggestions. No suggestions? Okay, we can take it for another round. I guess people want to see it. It's work in progress, so the vehicle isn't textured yet, right? The Maus 2. I don't know all of the Maus 2 plans off the top of my head. I thought it has a... I think it has a different turret, but... I don't know enough about it, right? Or I don't know enough about the documentation. So if there is enough, potentially, right? And if you can balance it. Because the thing with the Maus is it's a very peculiar vehicle, right? It needs essentially special balancing because it just works slightly differently, right? The Maus is right now pretty much the only vehicle that you can opt to make it invincible, right? If you angle the turret, if you angle the hull, there's almost nothing that can actually penetrate you frontally. Of course, the trade-off for that is you can't shoot back, right? So as soon as you actually try to engage another vehicle with a Maus, you make yourself vulnerable. But you can choose to simply not do that. What was that with the hull down IS-3? Essentially, if like your gun is this strong, you can start doing dumb stuff like this, right? The model may also have a few errors. It's an older model, right? So it will be updated, but generally speaking, you shouldn't shoot an IS-3 in the side of the turret at that angle. And as you can see here, right now, this is exactly the problem with the NPCs right now, right? They essentially don't understand that they don't have gun depression, same as this one here, right? He's looking at me, right? Like technically he is, it's just he can't actually depress the gun far enough. So let's go for that. Big hole. And then let's finish him off and we can go around to the others. We can actually... I will try something. I will load a high explosive round and see if I can actually flank them and shoot them in the rear. Because, as you can see, we have significant penetration power with HE. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to do. We might be able to go through the M103 side back here if we aim carefully between the... Yep, there we go. Because the engine block on the side is only, I think, like 40 mils or something, so it's not super thick. I don't know why this guy isn't shooting. Maybe he's aiming a bit too much. Oh, not maybe, I mean most likely he's aiming too much. Hello. Oh! So he does shoot. Ah, I think maybe something inside the vehicle was broken. He probably had like a damaged ammo rack or something. That's probably why, is I shot him in the side of the turret before with the high explosive round, so that's probably why like everything was minced meat, right? Oh, there we go. Overestimated that, right? Like the pen, because you have to keep in mind the IS-3 still has a really strong pike nose, right? Even if it's the slightly scuffed old model. And sometimes it doesn't work, but this should work. There we go. Yes, that turret was flying to Mars. So, I mean, that was an ammo explosion, right? Like the pure visual, there is an ammo explosion for that. And it depends on essentially if you, when on the kill shot for the vehicle, if you hit ammo or not. That's the exact idea, Mike, right? So, technically, like, I could turn it off. I don't really need it, right? But it's really helpful for new players, right? Hi Zairis, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, like it is the most powerful gun in the game at the moment, you could argue, right? Well, for the World War II era, right? But the downside is, that was the wrong button. The armor inspector, as you can see here, doesn't have the new UI yet, but if you look at this, you can see that the armor is very thin. You're looking at around 90 from the side. So that's a... ouch, right? Now for the side down here, that's a bit different, right? Because you have two layers, you have the applique. So there's a significant amount of space between the actual impacted armor and the side skirt here. Yeah, I mean, that's why we have everything in the game, right? There will be a tutorial system and essentially I guess some sort of tank academy, you could argue, where players will be able to get all the information that they need about the game. So there will always be people that give tips and tricks on positions on certain maps and so on, how to play this tank, how to play that tank. But the idea is that you shouldn't be forced to go to a third-party website to get information about how this vehicle actually works, right? That's why you have all of the... like, these are the main statistics. This is not the complete statistics view. There will be a separate one for that. We can see a few things like gun stabilization and so on. Those aren't listed here. But in the short overview, you can already see basically all the relevant stats. So when you really want to compare one vehicle to another, there will be a new compare view, but that one's currently work in progress. Let me just take a short note. Right, I'd say we go for 1 or 2 more rounds and then call it a day. Pick your poison, guys. I'll scroll through this once or twice and then If we don't have a decision by then, I'll pick something. We can take the BM for a spin. It's currently not completely modeled in the game, so parts of the armor are probably a bit wonky, right? But then again, since anyone can lower plate you anyways, right? Let's see, 2a4 and this is the BM. And of course, another thing here, this is taking modern era vehicles on a small scale World War II map, right? So this is going to be a wild ride, to put it that way. Basically everything is point blank, right? There's no range to anything. Probably someone around here. Not that I'd know with this pancake. Yeah. I think they might be wiggling a bit more excessively than what is intended. I think that has something to do with the pathfinding, and modern vehicles are just so fast at turning that it turns into this crazy wiggling. In which clans I was? Well, I mean, chances are you may not know them, because since I'm German, I was mostly in the German clan wars scene, right? But I've been around the block. I was in, like, you might know Trust. I was in some of the Trust clans a couple times for a few campaigns, so there's that. Rumble, you might remember those, the ones with giraffe. And the lower plate here is just, cheese pretty much, especially if he's angling it upwards. There you go. Don't want to get shot, not with the number of HP that I have left. Ouch. Oh, I think this game may be over. Another thing you can also see is, like, modern vehicles are much more brutal, right? Like, the armor mechanics basically don't allow you to expose your side at all, right? Like, they can basically pen your side at any angle. Ah, there we go. Well, anyways. Oh, alright, okay. Maybe we played a few clan battles together one day, or against each other probably. Alright, I'd say let's take a low rank vehicle for a spin maybe. And then we'll call it a day. What do I feel like? Yeah, maybe, yeah, let's go for a T1E3 round, I think. Um, I haven't served, right? Simply because I didn't have time in my life, right? Essentially what I did is I studied electrical engineering, and then I worked at Bosch in the automotive industry, driver assistance functions, and now I'm here. That's pretty much my life in super quick summary. So I haven't been in the army, but I've had the privilege to have a ride on quite a few vehicles. So I'd say I've been in around a dozen tanks. The most modern ones were probably Leopard 1A5 or the Leopard C1, I think, the Canadian version. I mean, that's basically T1E3 gameplay, right? You wait for your reload, you shoot someone very quickly, and then you run away. You can also see that, for instance, this icon down here, that one is new, so we overhauled those to give more immediate and, I guess, clearer feedback of what actually happened. So let's just... yeah, we'll just run over here, wait for our reload, and then... also losing some performance here over time. That's of course another thing that we'll be addressing, right? Simply figuring out stuff like that, why there's some FPS drops over time. It may also have to do with me streaming onto different platforms at the same time, but obviously it's a lot of these small things that you also have to sort out, right, for a full game on release. The larger scale battle plan, I mean, it may be something like 24 versus 24, but it's, I guess I shouldn't say planned, right? Because we have like a long-term vision for it, right? There will be a larger game mode, but right now it's not concretely built or anything, and it will have to wait until after release of the game, right? Okay, well then, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope you can tune in for the next big playtest. It's going to be late in December. Keep your eyes... how do you call that? Make sure to listen to our channels. Let's put it that way, right? Sometimes I forget which words I want to use, right? So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, and have a lovely weekend, guys.